Ladies and gentlemen, hey yo, fellas, welcome back to the channel. We are heading into now week 15, and there's Saturday football this week, so we will be having a video on Wednesday for the Saturday football $1 Million Maker, $1 million to first, 2-game slate. So that's going to be happening on Wednesday, taking the place of the values video to get that in there. So there's still just an 11-game slate. The buys are gone, but that Saturday football slate is going to make it still just an 11-game slate. So we're going to break down this 11-game slate, and let's get into it with a first look. First time looking at the salaries this week and reacting to that. I've already gone through for about 5 hours today and analyzed and have broken down basically a lot of what happened yesterday as I record this on Monday afternoon. So analyzing what happened is going to be important to understand kind of where roles were, of course, where injuries happened. And this game, this slate, this 11-game slate features 0 games opening up with a total over 48 points. Not even 50, not even 48. So we're getting into colder weather. We're getting into more injuries for these teams. And these games in general for the NFL for like the last month, a month and a half have not been great. Like the 4 o'clock window was pretty solid. It ended up being solid. The 1 o'clock window wasn't. And now you're starting to get a lot of these bad teams. I mean, that's why so much of the NFL is 5-8 right now, right? Or 5-7 and 7-6 and all this. They're all pretty close. There's parity in most of the league, and you're getting a lot of these teams to face each other. So Arizona in Detroit has a 47.5 total, and then 47.5 total in Seattle versus the Rams, and that's it. Everything else is below that. You're looking at a lot. Almost all of these totals are somewhere between 40, which is awful, Tennessee and Jacksonville, right? The rematch of week 1 when Jacksonville ended up getting upset by Tennessee. So you're getting so many of these games hovering right now. It's pretty crazy. Most of them are between 40 and 43 points. Like there's a couple at 47.5 that we mentioned. There's like one at 46, and the rest of them are just there. Like Thursday, this is counting just the Sunday slate and even the Saturday slate. But Thursday night football, you see a total with 50. Thank goodness for the Chiefs and Chargers. That'll be a fun showdown slate. But yeah, this main slate is going to be, generally speaking, low scoring. That's going to drive lower scoring fantasy outputs and just less overall solid plays from maybe quarterback and stacking situations relative to most weeks. So we can start at the quarterback position where we are dealing with some injuries. Josh Allen left that game with what is apparently turf toe. Aaron Rodgers is currently playing through turf toe. We'll see what the dramatic effects, if there's any, for Josh Allen. He is a more mobile quarterback as he just rushed for over 100 yards. That should potentially affect him. Carolina secondary has been solid as well. And then you get Lamar Jackson dealing with an ankle sprain. It's apparently a low ankle sprain. No status update as I record this on Monday afternoon. Low ankle sprains, I mean, you can come back in like 1 to 3 weeks, right? So I don't know if Lamar's going to be back. If he is back within 1 week, I doubt he is up to full health for his mobility, at least for the elite levels that he's normally at, but we'll have to track that throughout the week. It's going to make Huntley, I would assume a decent play if Lamar was to be out. And then Heineke messed up his knee, but apparently it's nothing too crazy. So I'm looking right now. He is not dealing with a high ankle sprain, is what the reports that are just coming out on Lamar are right now. He's going to be evaluated after practicing this week, so there's a chance he will suit up in week 15. Look, I don't think that early on it's going to lean towards Lamar playing, but I guess that we'll see against the Packers, which, yeah, we'll see where Huntley's priced. Maybe he's in the 4K range. We'll see. Josh Allen up top at $8,100. Fair price point. We have to see what happens with his turf toe. I'm going to be way more interested in Kyler Murray, who plays tonight on Monday Night Football. So assuming that Kyler doesn't get hurt tonight, I like Kyler Murray. He's coming off of his first week back in week 13. He had 10 rush attempts, a season high 59 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now he gets Detroit, who lacks a pass rush, who lacks a solid secondary by all accounts, and he has Hopkins and all these weapons. Edmonds coming back up to full health. So I'm way more interested in Kyler Murray up top. I mean, if you're looking at these top end quarterbacks, $7,000 and above on the screen right now, Josh Allen will always look okay, but I'll take Kyler, especially if Allen is dealing with some sort of turf toe. You have Aaron Rodgers, who he's going to be fine. He gets a really good matchup against Baltimore. He's coming off of a fantastic game in the main slate, over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns versus the Bears. The question now against Baltimore, though, especially if there's no Lamar, as they're probably going to be double-digit point favorites in that game. Let's see where it's opening at right now for Green Bay. Green Bay currently opening as 6-point favorites, but that's on the road in Baltimore. So, I mean, 9 points if they were at home, 9 points on a neutral field, 12 points if they were at home. So, if you still consider a 3-point spread. But yeah, that's an interesting spot. But again, it's probably a leverage spot if anything. Doesn't look too great right now. And then there's Stafford. So I think that if you're looking at this right now, it goes Kyler would be the priority up here. Stafford would definitely look good as well facing Seattle. Seattle wants to slow a pace down. They're at home, though. They're going to have one of the better team totals on the slate. They're probably going to have the best team total on the slate if I had to imagine right now. Game looks to be like a 48 implied total. They come into that game against Seattle in the 4 o'clock window as well, so you get some nice late swap ability if you need it. They come in as 6-point favorites in that game. So they'll be looking at like a 27, 26.5 implied team total as the highest on the week. You get now Jalen Hurts back on the slate. So early on, Hurts is going to have a nice matchup against Washington's secondary, which Dak was able to pick apart for most of that game until they kind of slowed it down a little bit in week 13 in week 14. So Hurts comes back this week. It'd be interesting to see how he looks. He's dealing with a little bit of bumps and bruises as well. Dak Prescott's on the slate. Russell Wilson's here, who still, I mean, he's getting these moonshots to Tyler Lockett to hit, but still not going all out in terms of unless they have to, which, again, this game environment might force it. So I'm looking at this right now. I mean, this range is pretty atrocious. Ryan Tannehill versus Pitt, Joe Burrow versus Denver. He had to do it when he had to do it. Went to overtime to get him there a little bit. Jimmy G, same exact situation in that game last week. I'm looking at this slate, and like up top, I think that Kyler makes a lot of sense. I think that both Stafford and Russ from that same game environment are going to be pieces that I have, and then maybe you take stabs on Dak versus the Giants, and that's kind of all that looks appealing. We keep scrolling. Tua at home versus the Jets. That screams out as a really nice value play to maybe start a lineup with. I still want to see where Huntley is. He's not on here. $5,400 Tyler Huntley. So this is the guy, Lamar Jackson light, if you will. He's nowhere near as fast, but he has a lot of agility, and he's been pretty solid. I mean, you have not seen much of Tyler Huntley this season. You saw him in week 11 get the start. He averaged 6.1 yards per attempt, but he threw 36 times. Like, they're letting this dude throw. And then this past week when he fills in for Lamar, who gets hurt in the second quarter, he throws 38 times in 3 quarters of play, Tyler Huntley. He has about 100 quarterback rating. He ends up rushing in both of those games, both week 11 and in week 14. He ends up rushing for 40-plus yards in each event. He has 3 fumbles, though, so far in the year, but he's definitely going to start. There's nobody else on this roster. I mean, they used to have Trace McSorley, who they liked, and Trace McSorley is no longer with the team. So yes, Tyler Huntley is somebody that is appealing. If there's no Lamar Jackson, let's start this with Tyler Huntley, a mobile quarterback. He is not dirt cheap. He's $5,400. Like, you have Tua for only $300 more, and Tua has been clearly solid. He has Devontae Parker back this week. That's the only thing that really looks good at this point down here. So I would say that, I mean, Cam's here, but versus Buffalo on the road, he continues, and he's been pulled in back-to-back games now, seesawing back and forth. Their quarterbacks in these games. Yeah, I would say that Huntley and Tua look like the plays if you're looking for guys basically below Russell Wilson's price point. Like below $6,400, it looks to be Huntley and Tua on first look. Other than that, this range looks solid with Matt Stafford, Russ, and Dak. If I'm going up to the top, I'm going up to Kyler Murray, assuming he doesn't get hurt on Monday Night Football. So that's the quarterback position. That's kind of interchangeable depending on how much money we spend elsewhere. But let's go back now to these running backs here. And starting up top, you get the most expensive player on the slate. It's not an expensive week in running back, ladies and fellas out there. And also, by the way, if you're not already familiar, hopefully you're having a lovely day today. If you're interested in my daily fantasy course, I've had it for a few years now. It is a 10 hours plus of videos on game theory, on how to think strategically, on where there's hidden edges in DFS, stuff that I don't really talk about. Maybe on live streams we get into it, but it's 10 hours of videos. It's a bunch of downloadable files for the most important things to be looking at, whether it's stats, whether it's news, or how to react to certain things. Same price principle. The edge on Monday to Thursday slates, and just a bunch of stuff if you're interested, not only for NFL, but just DFS in general. It's free. It's completely free now. It's a $100 course that's completely free. If you sign up with Prize Picks using the code CLASS, you also get a free bet up to $100 on Prize Picks. It's a player prop site, so you can check that out. That is a limited time offer for the holidays. We're only going to be running it for the next few days, so be sure to check it out. That is going to be linked down below. Code CLASS get you the free course, $100. It's $100 right now on the site if you don't have the coupon code, and it's also going to get you a free bet up to $100. So there you go. With that being said, take advantage of it. Have a lovely time. A bunch of people I saw signed up yesterday, about 40 people. Lovely. We'd love to have you in. So now we get to the running backs, and look, they're cheap. They're cheap this week, right? You don't have Eckler on the slate. He's on the Thursday night slate. You don't have all the studs on the slate still. There's still no Jonathan Taylor on the slate. There's now Saturday games, so that's going to be taking up some of the games on the slate, right? There's no Kamaras on the slate. There's studs are just not on the slate. CMC is hurt, right? So Naji Harris at $7,800, the guy who leads the NFL in opportunity share, right? So, I mean, he technically is a stud based on volume, staying healthy, all that. He's only $7,800 this week. I mean, last week you saw 20 of 21 opportunities on the ground. He's still just a man who's seeing every single touch for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. He ended up finding the end zone on a reception, like 3 catches, 10 yards. So he's still heavily involved. He's at home against Tennessee. I think it's a decent spot for Naji Harris in this game. So I think that looks good. And then, I mean, if you're just looking at this really quickly, like you have clearly Derrick Henry's on IR. So the 7K and above range this week is just Mixon, Elliott, and Naji. It doesn't look good for Tony Pollard. Maybe he returns this week. Didn't practice at all last week. Was ruled out before the game with a torn foot, plantar fasciitis, so that's not great. Doesn't sound good. But Elliott in that game last week, Ezekiel Elliott, it wasn't looking good for him either. He literally split with Corey Clement. This knee bruise that he has, apparently it's supposed to hinder him until the playoffs, and they're not trying to put a lot on his shoulders until the playoffs because they feel good about getting there. So I don't really feel that confident on the road against New York, even in a good matchup. I mean, they should be up in this game relatively big. Right now, you see Dallas coming into this game in a divisional matchup against the Giants. Divisional matchups can change some things, but they're coming in as 10-point favorites with a nice team total. So, I mean, it's going to profile out nicely for Elliott. It'll be kind of an ownership thing. If too many people have the same mindset as me as, oh, he's hurt, I don't want to get there, because this past week, he had 13 rushing attempts to Corey Clement's 12, right? He ran 30 routes, though, so that's the thing. He was on the field more to Corey Clement just running 10 routes, 6 targets to Clement's 2, but he still had 19 opportunities to 14 for Corey Clement basically coming off the street. So that's a concern, only getting getting there if it's lower ownership. Joe Mixon. I mean, Joe Mixon was battling illness all week long. Joe Mixon, I put a tweet out. I mean, Joe Mixon was not seeing any work in the passing game. Joe Mixon ended up losing work to P. Ryan. P. Ryan only saw 4 carries to Mixon's 18, but Mixon only ran 15 routes to P. Ryan's 22 in a game where they were trailing. So that's a concern. I do think the illness was probably factored in. So if we're looking at guys $7,000 and above, yeah, Naji Harris is pretty secure. Joe Mixon, I'm not too concerned about the pass catching role last week. He has a good matchup against Denver too, by the way. They're only 1-point underdogs. At least they open up 1-point underdogs on the road versus Denver, so it's nothing concerning there about game script. I would say that Mixon looks like a really solid play. So let's start to do this. If we're building a first look, let's just go in here and put Naji Harris. If this was, so we get Huntley and Naji Harris, we'll take the secured touches on Naji Harris. If this is a GPP, I do think that Joe Mixon becomes really, really appealing. I mean, the dude still saw 20 opportunities last week after coming off of illness and not practicing all week long. You go down a little bit more. Patterson, I know he scored his 10th touchdown of the season. I'm not really that interested in Cordell Patterson this week. He's just naturally assuming, I mean, it's an 11-game slate, so I assume he's going to be overpriced compared to some other guys I probably want to get to. But the other thing about Patterson is he's starting to lose this receiving game role. And Mike Davis is still relatively strongly involved. I mean, Patterson only ran 11 routes last week. He got there on the ground as a pure running back, sure, but the reason we liked him a lot more was the receiving game role. Only 11 routes last week with Mike Davis running the majority of the routes out of the backfield. Doesn't feel that great by any means. You scroll down to Aaron Jones, who only had 8 touches, 8 total opportunities, 8 touches, 15 carries on the ground for A.J. Dillon, so there's a split there. Are they trying to lighten the load on Aaron Jones? He comes into this game as a touchdown favorite. This looks to be a really good GPP play, but the weather getting colder. It's going to be cold in Baltimore. They look to run A.J. Dillon. He's a better pure runner than Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is definitely the better receiver, and you saw that last week. Aaron Jones got the touchdowns last week, but yeah, the usage at this point, I mean, he saw 44% of the snaps to A.J. Dillon's 54%, so that's not great. He's in kind of a 50-50 backfield split right now, so that's a little bit of a concern for the price point. Saquon looked good. I mean, you got 90-plus total yards out of Saquon Barkley this past week. The opportunities continue to come in. He's now averaged in his 3 weeks back 19 opportunities per week. In these 3 weeks, 12, 13, and 14 that he's seen a full-time role. Tampa Bay didn't see a full-time role. So yeah, 19 opportunities per week is what he's averaging. He ended up getting in the end zone late in that game to salvage his week. And look, I mean, he looked good. He continues to have bursts. The problem is it's Mike Glennon. The offense is terrible. They're literally just running on like 3rd down and 4s at this point. They're punting all the time. It's terrible. The offense is so bad it's hard to find the red zone. So that's what you're getting. I mean, he saw 17 routes run compared to his backfield mate Devontae Booker seeing 17 routes run as well. I'm not too concerned about that split though, because it was kind of garbage time when Booker was getting more touches, and then Saquon just happened luckily to get the touchdown. But like the last drive of the game was garbage time. Booker ended up running a bunch of routes there, probably about 5 or 6. So Saquon's definitely interesting. Connor, I'm not going to be interested in with, at least not at this price point. I want to see what else is down there. Swift is appealing, and so is it. So this range right here is really appealing. I mean, you get Elijah Mitchell, who's probably going to return this week. They have nothing in that backfield. I mean, Jeff Wilson looked terrible. They didn't give JaMychal Hasty any touches. Debo was getting carries. They're going to go right back to a full workhorse role for Elijah Mitchell. There's no doubt in my mind against a terrible defensive line in Atlanta. That looks like a really, really good spot for the late slate as 8.5 points favorite San Francisco. So assuming that Mitchell can return, he's not on IR. $6,200 Elijah Mitchell, whose price point drops $500 just because he didn't play. He was $6,700 last week. He doesn't play. He was out. He should be back this week. We'll see with the concussion. He's $6,200 now, and now Elijah Mitchell gets a better matchup. So yeah, give me $6,200 Elijah Mitchell all day long. And the other thing is that Swift is on here. I don't know if Swift is going to be able to return yet. They're kind of talking about potentially shutting him down, so it doesn't seem like he's that close. There's no like real reason to bring him back outside of my fantasy leagues. So that's interesting. Javonte Williams, far out touched by Melvin Gordon. It's just still not something I want to touch, especially since he's somewhat expensive. Similar discussion here we can have with kind of A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. Both these guys are expensive. A.J. Dillon we haven't gotten to yet, but both these guys are expensive for Denver, and they're in kind of a 50-50 backfield split when other guys here, like an Elijah Mitchell, have full-time roles. Antonio Gibson got benched after fumbling. Pretty shitty that they put Jonathan Williams in there over him and getting the rushing touchdown. I played Gibson last week in my main lineup. That stunk. He's on the road against Philadelphia this week. He's kind of going to be like that flop lag guy. He was 22% on last week, seeing 27.5 opportunities per game since the bye week. Last week, he only sees 13 opportunities with no J.D. McKissick, and now McKissick potentially returns this week. I think a lot of people avoid Gibson, who's at the exact same price point, who's still in a fine matchup here, and also a fine game situation. So I'm not shocked to see Gibson be a nice leverage play this week in GPPs. I still expect ownership to go there. Henderson on COVID list. He'll probably get out of that. Another situation. So you have so many of these backfields split. You have, we still haven't gotten to A.J. Dillon, but you have this Denver backfield and you have this Rams backfield. They're split, and both their guys are similar price. Like if Henderson is able to return next week, then you just have kind of a 50-50 backfield split. Henderson maybe goes 60-40 as Sony Michel has been playing well. Maybe they still give him some touches, but it's just still these guys are really expensive. Why go to them even in a decent matchup? matchup. Miles Sanders is on here. Sanders is somebody that's going to be looking really good. I mean, $5,800 Sanders at home this week. It's a tough matchup versus the Washington defensive line, but this Eagles run blocking unit is probably the best run blocking unit up there with the Patriots in the NFL. Sanders did tweak his ankle before the bye week. Apparently, it was not meant to be anything major. It was probably a low ankle sprain, maybe not even a sprain. A low ankle sprain will take that 1 to 3 weeks to come back from, and it's been, thankfully, because he had the bye week about 2 weeks. So I like Miles Sanders. I mean, Miles Sanders is just sandwiched in between a bunch of running backs that are in just backfield by committees. Like you get him in a backfield by committee with A.J. Dillon, Sony Michel, Pollard if he even plays, Henderson. And then there's Miles Sanders out there who's coming off of a game of 20-plus opportunities. Maybe Jordan Howard returns to ruin some of that, but 20-plus opportunities, his best game of the year rushing-wise. His efficiency has been up. It's a really good situation overall for Sanders. Chuba Hubbard, he found the end zone last week on a 17-yard run, basically untouched. But other than that, I mean, you got 10 attempts, but the passing game role disappeared. You had 22 routes for Abdullah and 4 targets to 0 targets for Hubbard, so I'm not going to be as interested at a similar price for Hubbard. Gaskin, he might play this week. He's on the COVID list. Phillip Lindsay would look good if he goes out of there. Devonta Freeman is somewhat appealing. Freeman's $5,500. They're going to continue to run the ball. This past week, he had 18 opportunities. He had 5 receptions, 31 routes, and the only guy behind him, Latavius Murray, outside of his own mobile quarterbacks, but Latavius Murray only 1 attempt, so he's interesting. James Robinson, Trevor Lawrence got to the podium, and James Robinson basically said, or Trevor Lawrence said, all the shit that's going on right now in Jacksonville with Urban Meyer, Trevor Lawrence said, we got to play this guy. Like, why are we not fucking playing this guy? He basically said, he's like, we have to play James Robinson. So Trevor Lawrence, who's like the rookie, he doesn't really say much. He literally spoke up and was like, we have to play James Robinson. He's a good fucking running back because they only gave him 6 attempts. He wasn't running many routes out there. Did not look good. They had Darrell Gumbawali on the field. Not a good look. Rashad Penny is going to be a popular name this week. I think it's probably going to be a little bit of fool's gold. I mean, this past week, he looked good, sure. Maybe they get Adrian Peterson back. I don't know how you go away from Rashad Penny if you're Seattle at this point, but let's just look at some of the things that they're looking at here. Seattle is now a 7-point, 6.5-point, depending on where you look, underdog on the road, and they're facing the number 1 run defense in the NFL in the Los Angeles Rams. So Rashad Penny, who I admit, he looked good in that game, but this has been what? His like 1 to 2 best games that he's ever had in 4 years now in the NFL as a first-round pick. So I do think that Rashad Penny will probably come in over-owned after the big week. He looked good. He ended up having a lot of the opportunities, but they still ran 3 running backs. 3 running backs were active and getting touches in Seattle. They just love to do that shit. Rashad Penny did not get much passing game work in that game. He ended up seeing 13 routes, 1 target. He ended up getting 16 carries. He had the big rushing touchdowns, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns. Totally different matchup now this week. I don't expect them to be up by 20 points like they were all of last week against the Texans. Totally different situation. I'll probably be out on Penny if he comes in at like 10% ownership or higher. We keep going down. Deontay Foreman's in a 3-headed backfield. Chase Edmonds, $5,100. That's really nice against Detroit. You would expect 10 to 12 touches. The dude just like naturally is dropping 10 to 12 plus points a game. So Chase Edmonds in this price range, at least, like I'm looking right now to start the 5K range off, let's just say below James Robinson's price point, because I like Robinson at home against Tennessee. He's probably close to making this lineup, but Edmonds will look good. We keep scrolling in. Maybe Tevin Coleman comes back. We'll see what happens there. They just had all kinds of weird ass running backs active for that game. Michael P. Ryan makes a pop-up appearance, right? Austin Walter gets ill. He's active and he's ill and he's not playing. Just really weird. Houston tracked their situation. Rex Burkhead hurt. David Johnson missed last week, got put on the COVID list kind of right before the game. So maybe Royce Freeman is the main running back there as a cheap option. Kind of seems terrifying to want to go to that though. So I mean, I'm still scrolling here. Yeah, Royce Freeman at $4,500. We'll have to see what happens with David Johnson's status with the COVID, and we'll also have to be tracking what ends up happening with Rex Burkhead. Oh wow, Phillip Lindsay's also on the COVID list for Miami, so who knows what happens there. I'm pretty sure Patrick Laird's on IR with a torn ACL as well. So yeah, so the bottom of this range just looks like a bunch of gross plays, right? A bunch of gross plays are down here. I don't know if Craig Reynolds will be active this week. It depends what happens with Jamal Williams. Even then, they use like a 3-headed backfield. So yeah, I mean, I think there's some value plays. Having Chase Edmonds back in the low 5K ranges is actually really valuable for us. That's probably where I'll end up going. Next up, we can now go, let's actually just get a cheap defense to build this out. So we get Elijah Mitchell, we get Naji Harris, and we're getting secure touches, and then a cheap mobile quarterback. We have $5,100 per player. Let's find a cheap defense that's somewhat decent. Panthers versus Buffalo, and I mean, that's not terrible, but no thank you. Detroit and Arizona, no. The Jets in Miami. The Jets in Miami isn't terrible. I mean, the Jets' defense is terrible. Matchup against Miami is not the worst. Not really looking too good, though. Seattle, let's see. Washington football team, $2,700 against the Eagles. That's fine. We'll go with there. That's fine. So if we get them, we're at $5,500 per player. Now we can go to the tight end position. And then at the tight end position, let's see what we got here. We have Kittle up top, who's coming off of back-to-back monster games. Now he's priced all the way up to $7,500. This dude was just $5,900 2 weeks ago, where he was a great play. Last week, I wasn't on him. I admit. I mean, the game went to overtime, but I admit he popped off. But I just wasn't on him at the price tag. I thought it was restrictive at $6,900. Now he's really restrictive at this price tag. Andrews is here, looks okay. Pitts continues to just really struggle. Continues to see cornerbacks. Positive for him, though. San Fran has no real good cornerbacks. Zach Ertz in stacks with his team makes a lot of sense with the Cardinals. Dallas Goedert's coming off of a massive game with Gardner Minshew off the bye. I mean, a lot of these tight ends just fucking look similar. Like, it's going to be very stack-based. Like, Dallas got to be a one-off. I doubt I get there as much because Zach Ertz in Arizona stacks. Hawkinson and run back of Arizona stacks. Dawson Knox, it took overtime, but finally he gets back going. The whole entire offense got back going really in that second half and overtime. Dawson Knox finds the end zone, sees about 9 targets in that game. Gesicki's coming off of a 10-target game. He wasn't efficient before the bye week, just 4 receptions, but 10 targets is nice. So a lot of these guys just look very similar. I'd probably rather go to Gesicki as a one-off over Goddard just because there's a real chance that Philadelphia throws 25 times in that game when we know that Tua can throw 35 to 40 more often. Schultz is coming off of a week of 40 routes run, but only 1 catch for like 4 yards. So all the routes that he's running, Pat Frymuth, 36 routes run, that's a season high for him. These dudes are running routes, so they're still in play. So like all these dudes just look so similar. Depends on what you're stacking up here. Mike Gesicki, Pat Frymuth at one-offs look a lot better than guys like Noah Fant, who's basically splitting 17 routes to 14 routes for Albert O. Albert O out-targeted him, found the end zone. That doesn't feel great. Tyler Higby is somebody that looks good, but as I'm literally saying this, I saw a text come up from the top of my screen saying Tyler Higby, like RIP or something from my cousin, and it basically means that he's on the COVID list. So I'm looking at this right now, and Tyler Higby is now on the COVID list, literally as of 36 seconds ago for Ian Rappaport. So what that is going to do is leave us in a situation where I can't go to Tyler Higby, and now quickly you go from the 4K range to the 3K range. You have Gerald Everett here, not somebody that I really want to go to. He's kind of splitting reps as well. Dan Arnold's on IR. Ricky Seals-Jones ran less routes than John Bates. Not sure if that was injury related to the hip. James O'Shaughnessy saw 6 targets, now gets Tennessee, where he had a nice game week 1 against them. CJ Uzomah finally got back going. I mean, not much stands out down here now. Like Brevan Jordan, we played Brevan Jordan. Brevan Jordan's routes came up to 23, but his route percentage was just still 44%. They're still playing 4 tight ends out there with Jordan Aikens now back. Farrell Brown still in Houston. We like the rookie, but do I really like getting to that? DeGore is interesting for the Packers. Rodgers threw 37 times. He only saw 3 targets, DeGore, but he's definitely involved. He's on the field a lot. If you're trying to punt tight end, that looks to be the place to punt at 2,700 if you're looking for the cheapest. Man, so 4K, Tyler Higby would definitely be the play that I wanted to go to. I'm not sure if he'll be back in 6 days ready to rock and roll for this Sunday slate. Maybe there will be a tight end that pops up. I don't know if they still have Jacob Harris. He was like a tight end that they transitioned to wide receiver in the preseason. So maybe there'll be another tight end that pops up. Johnny Munt's on IR. Gerald Everett's not on the team anymore. Is there any tight ends that are on this team? I mean, second-year player Bryson Hopkins, who had good college numbers, he doesn't have much of a role. I assume he's going to play tonight on Monday Night Football. That can be somebody at 2,500 if there's no Higby also next week if he doesn't test positive or doesn't test negative in time. So, yeah, I guess tight end is a little bit difficult now. What do we got? We got $5,500 per person. Let's just go and find a cheap player down here. So if we can go ahead and let's just punt tight end. Fuck it. Let's just go to, I mean, Brevan Jordan's still okay. The routes don't entice me that much, but it looks like he had somewhat of a connection, ended up seeing 6 targets, a season high. Let's go back to Brevan Jordan. I actually played Brevan Jordan last second in my single entry last week, ended up working out nicely. So a $2,800 Brevan Jordan gives us for our 3 flexes or 3 wide receivers in a flex, $6,300 left. So now we go to the wide receiver position here. We start up top, we get Cooper Kupp and Adams. I mean, I want both these guys in this lineup somehow. I don't think we can afford it, but let's just go to Adams. I'm just going to go to Adams here, blindly go to Adams off of a 12-target game. Nothing wrong with Kupp, who plays tonight. The man has literally gone for 9 or more targets in every game, 10 or more in every game but 1, over 88.5 yards in every game but 1. That looks completely fine versus Seattle. So if we can get the Kupp, that looks really good as well. But I'll take the matchup against Baltimore secondary that is just leaking points at this point. It's just awful. No Marlon Humphreys, of course, for the season. So we go to Devonta Adams. It gives us $5,400 per player left to spend. You get Debo, who only saw 1 target last week operating as a receiver. You get Diggs, who's fine, but mainly in just those Buffalo stacks. We don't have enough money to pay for these guys. Finally out of the 6K range and up to the $7,500 is Deonte Johnson. CeeDee Lamb coming off of another big double-digit target game. He continues to be the main dude out there. You get Jamar Chase, who had the 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, could add another one. So this range looks pretty similar with CeeDee Lamb in this price range. Jamar Chase, Lockett's price keeps coming up as he got those moonshots. Not as many targets, but just the moonshots are landing relative to Metcalf's, who aren't, even though Metcalf had 8 more targets. Hopkins looks really good. Hopkins, who came back and played 71% of the snaps, plays tonight, so assuming there's no setback from the injury that he was dealing with, which I think was like a hamstring, gets a matchup versus Detroit's cornerbacks, and he's only $6,900 for a guy who's a caliber to be a 7K plus receiver. He's next to McLaurin, who's dealing with injury, and he's next to A.J. Brown, who's banged up, so you're quickly in this range where it's kind of Hopkins as a stud receiver at $6,900. How do I avoid that? It leaves us with $4,600 left. If we could find one cheap guy, we can make a pretty nice lineup here. Hopkins and Adams is a pretty damn good way to start this lineup, and we're getting so many secure targets and touches here. I mean, outside of Brevan Jordan, who we're just kind of punting, but Adams and Hopkins, let's see what we can end up getting the more that we go down. Waddle's on here. You got Mike Gesicki there, yes, but Devontae Parker to come back. Waddle still ended up leading that team in targets. T. Higgins over 100 yards yet again. He's looking good. His price point's up. Amari Cooper is at a fair price point of $6,400. Price point comes up $500, but led Dallas in routes, found the end zone, 5 catches, 55 yards in that, or 50-plus yards in that game. Ayuk, the game-winning touchdown. He continues to run the most routes in San Francisco. Good matchup, but will they have to throw as much as like 10-point favorites against Atlanta? I'm not sure. Metcalf's price keeps slowly coming down. I mean, he keeps getting targets. He keeps seeing 7 and 8 targets per game from Russ Wilson. It's just not resulting in touchdowns. 4 catches for 40 yards wasn't great. It was Lockett finding the deep bombs last week. Devonta Smith is going to definitely be a strong GPP option because people are going to go to Metcalf, or they're going to go to Cooper, Ayuk are producing, or they're going to go to DJ Moore, who's producing and a little bit cheaper, and nobody's going to want to go there, so he's kind of only a GPP option for me. Hard not to like DJ Moore. I mean, 10 more targets, even with terrible quarterback play, keeps getting there. Hit the over for us in the receiving yards. Love Claypool this week off of 9 targets, although his routes came down. He left the field in 2 wide receiver sets. Cook's off a 100-yard game. I'm not really interested in Russell Gage. Jefferson's a fine price point, but meh. Julio was somewhat limited. Only played 47% of the snaps. He's 5,400. Price point doesn't change. That's somewhat appealing to me. Odell, I would prefer over all these guys in that game environment in this range. He is top 6 in the NFL. He ends up playing tonight, but top 6 in the NFL in his first 2 weeks with this team as we keep scrolling down. Now, let's see what we can find down here. Christian Kirk, I like for GPPs. Amon-Ra St. Brown, back-to-back massive target weeks, although, I mean, he needs those targets because he's being targeted so shallow down the field. Bateman with the 100-yard game from Huntley. His price point's up to $5K. That's appealing. Tyler Boyd. Cole Beasley's price point somehow drops $100 after his first decent game with double-digit targets in a couple of weeks, really a month since he's been injured with those ribs. Not much stands out here. Sutton, I mean, 1 catch, 2 targets, brutal. Slayton, Tim Patrick, Rondell Moore. I mean, not much to stand out. Laviska Shenault's getting a lot of routes, but not downfield. This stands out. $4,300 Devontae Parker definitely stands out. I mean, Devontae Parker came back, ended up having a decent game. His price point was $3,900. His price point comes up to only $4,300. I mean, this is a guy out there running like the routes, right? He's running all these routes when he's out there, Devontae Parker. Last week when he ended up coming back, you get Parker. He sees 5 catches, 62 yards. It was his first game below 7 targets this year, but he came back from injury, and he ended up coming back running 32 routes, playing a full-time role. He was right there with Waddle, who led the team with 37 routes. So if we add Devontae Parker at $4,300, who I would consider like a borderline alpha, gets them Jets secondary, we had $5,000 for our final player here. So let's just like $5,000. We're not going to find a running back, so it's going to have to be a wide receiver. Let's just keep scrolling to see if there's any value. Lazard had the nice game. I don't think it's that consistent, though. Sanders got hurt, so where is Gabe Davis is probably relatively cheap. Humphreys, maybe there's no McLaurin. We'll see. Samuel's still only running like 7 routes. Gabe Davis is here at $3,700. I mean, we have more than that, but he might operate as the wide receiver 3 in Carolina. Maybe Gilmore goes on Diggs, and then you end up seeing Gabe Davis with a nice matchup at just $3,700. Definitely going to be somebody a lot of people talk about this week. Nico Collins' role is increasing, running a ton of routes as the clear wide receiver 2 in his team with Houston out there, seeing some love and some targets from Davis Mills, which is nice. A lot of guys out here who are running routes and seeing some usage like Albert Wilson and Laquan Treble, but none of them like scream out to me as you got to get to these guys. I'd rather just get to Gabe Davis. Like we're down here at $3K flat basically. Definitely would just rather get to Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis is $3,700. Like if we play him, what do? We go up at in the 5K range. Who can we afford? We can afford right at Bateman. So Bateman's a nice price point coming off of the big game, right? 7 catches, 103 yards. Clearly took over the role ahead of Sammy Watkins. Duvernay though is still out there, but took over the role ahead of Sammy Watkins. That's now 2 games where he's been targeted by Tyler Huntley. So that's appealing. They expect to play from behind in that game. And then Cole Beasley. So, I mean, Cole Beasley is just kind of like the safer option. Bateman's the upside option. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, we can go to like Gabe Davis here and then get up at the quarterback position for $1,300 more to like $6,700. So I guess you can go like Russell Wilson and Gabe Davis, something along those lines, a Dak and a Gabe Davis, or you can just go to Huntley if he's in, and then you go down to Bateman. I mean, Huntley and Bateman kind of give you that correlation, right? So that's actually somewhat appealing. So if you build this lineup out, we spend all of our money. We get Huntley, Naji Harris, Mitchell. That feels good. Secure touches for sure. Adams and Hopkins, secure targets for sure. We take Parker, who has a lot of upside, the alpha size and speed wide receiver. Punt on Brevan Jordan. Bateman for the connection with Huntley. And this is starting to feel really good. Now, and also, this is a GPP lineup because you're running back Adams here, right? So this is great. And obviously, I know you put Adams in the flex, so you have more position flexibility with him being more expensive. So this feels good. This feels really good, actually. So yeah, there we go. It's as simple as that. We just built out a GPP lineup. We don't even have to try and build out another GPP lineup. So there you go. There's your first look at the Week 15 slate. Packers and Baltimore stack feels pretty dang good early on. You can get Huntley with Bateman, and there you go. You run it back with the ever so reliable Devonta Adams every single week, just smashing it seems like for the last 2 to 3 years. So thank you for tuning in today. There's your first look. Let me know what is your first looks, your first favorite looks, your first favorite clicks, whatever it might be down below in the comments section. And again, if you want to get the free NFL course, it's not just NFL, it's in general DFS stuff as well. But if you want to get that and a free bet up to $100 on PrizePicks, a player prop site, so you get a free bet and you get the course, which is a $100 course if you don't have the access code and you don't sign up to PrizePicks. you can go ahead, you can go to prizepicks.com, use the code CLASS like you're in school, CLASS, and you'll get that. You'll get a code emailed to you from me to get the course, and you'll get the $300 on Prize Picks. So thank you for tuning in today. I appreciate you all a ton. Subscribe button pops up if you are interested and you enjoyed the video. Double check to make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you all in the next one.